Good morning, everybody. I want to do a little bit of a past, present, and future kind of project list in a way, in a sense. Not particularly. It's not going to be completely set in stone, but I do have a few ideas I want to work on and some things that I've already made when the camera was broken. So I wanted to show them off a little bit. And I just woke up, so my beard and hair is a little nuts. It's cool, whatever. So first order of business is I finally finished. Well, I wouldn't say finished, but mostly cleaned up the room. So now I actually have room to move around. I know, right? I'm no longer confined to solitary confinement in a junk heap, but I did find this old piano. I used to play it when I was a kid. It wasn't technically mine. It's like my father's, or my grandmother's, one of the two. But it's been sitting in the closet for probably 10 years. So I figured it's time to break it out. I'm not particularly musically inclined, but I do kind of like to sing, and I am pretty good. I was getting pretty good at the piano. I don't know about now. Keyboard, I guess you'd call it. But I've been a little, let's just say I'm a little out of practice, like 10 years out of practice. But yeah, I finally got a new backpack. It's kind of big, but it's going to be good for our new upcoming adventures, which we'll talk about in a second. I want to finish talking about some of the past stuff. So I lost my gauge for my earring. So I went and made this guy. It's just a copper wire that I spun in a drill and shaped it down the way I liked it. The ring is from an old gauge. Brass wire with 3 plastic silver beads, and something up in the woods completely wrecked a blue jay. So I grabbed some of the feathers that looked good and figured I'd use them for stuff like this. I think this might be there's a stone I recovered from a piece of jewelry. I think this is pretty kind of girly, maybe a little Native American-y, and I like it, but I think I might use this one as a gift to make myself a new one at some point. Because that one's just for... That's to temporarily replace all the ones I keep mis- mystically losing? Arbitrarily losing? But, the other thing I made is this little item here. Uh, it's called a meteor hammer. I made it with a golf ball, a twist-in screw eye, some old chain I found, paracord, and a piece of my old t-shirt. This weapon's mostly for show, like, in my opinion. I did have a monkey's fist knot tied on the end, but and a ball bearing, but I eventually broke the paracord, and the ball bearing flew out, and I got a little worried that I might kill somebody, so I decided I would replace it with a screw-in golf ball. I messed around with it for a little bit, but I'm better with my feet than I am with this kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's cool to have. I'll probably mess around with it again someday, but for right now, it's just a project. I learned how to tie a monkey's knot, and learned what a meteor hammer was, or a rope javelin, depending on how you look at it. So that's pretty much that. I have some more stuff outside that I was working on, but we're not going outside because, see that? It's cold out there, and I got laundry to wash, so I'm not going to get into too much. Um, Griff and Otis are still doing pretty good. They're like, feed me, feed me. I've been holding off on feeding them because they expect me to feed them every day at about this time. Well, this is actually a little early for me, but they expect me to feed them every day, and I usually give them a pretty generous amount. But scum is building up on the bottom very fast, so I've been kind of giving them less and less food so that they kind of make less waste. There are two goldfish. I usually give them, when I first got them, I was giving them 4 to 6 pellets. Then I just started giving, like, a pinch full, like 12 or 13, and now that's just too much. So I'm kind of letting them clean up a little bit of the back stuff. And I just cleaned the tank, so I didn't want to clean it again. Oh, you notice the dragons? I did these when I was a kid. Like a real little kid. Like, when I was more into the artistic stuff. I actually kind of like this one. It shows a pretty good color scheme. But, it's, you can't really color outside the lines on those guys. It just takes a little bit of color stuff, So, I tried to contact SW Dweeb to see about doing another big, like, 2019 Open Ropers thing, because I don't have enough people that follow me to actually initiate something like that. Well, I mean, I might be able to, but, I mean, all he'd have to do is say it, and there'd be, 30 people hopping on the bandwagon. Me, if I did it, I'd be lucky to get 5 or 10, and then they might get other people, but, it's just easier to go the route of contacting him, and just makes more sense. So, I asked him if he wanted to try to do another one of those videos to like a maker's challenge, and he got back to me, and he said maybe in the spring. So I was thinking of, like, what's something that every single person in the world could probably make. I mean, as long as you have, opposable thumbs and a brainstem. I mean, that might not even be necessary. And I was thinking, like, last time it was a bottle opener, probably a keychain. Like, maybe set some sort of guidelines, but, I mean, keychain's pretty universal, and there are so many, you can make it out of pretty much anything. So if we do it, I'm hoping that I can suggest to him a keychain would probably be a pretty cool idea. I got some mercury. I went down junking some metals, and some guy that kind of knows me, I guess, picked me up and gave me a ride downtown, and was like, hey, I got this here old temperature gauge, and it has some mercury in it, do you want it? I was like, well, yeah, I guess. I mean, there's a couple of things you could do with mercury. It's not a ridiculous amount. I can't really say by weight, because it would be like, the weight of mercury is kind of misleading unless you work with it all the time. It's incredibly dense. So I'm saying, like, it'd be like, if you had like an ounce of water, it'd be like, in volume, it's probably like a half ounce of mercury. So I'm not really sure what I could do with it. There's some amalgamations. It's kind of like where mercury forms an alloy with another metal. It kind of like eats it, and it does different things. There's different ones of those I could perform that wouldn't be too difficult, but I wanted to see if there was a potential way of turning it back into red cinnabar crystals, which I think are more toxic, but I also think they're pretty. So if I put them in a glass vial, and store them somewhere, it should be fine. But I couldn't find a way to do that yet. Not reasonably. I mean, I'm sure there's a way, like some crazy high voltage electrolysis method or some crap. I'm sure there's a way. Just I probably don't have the stuff to do it. I need to make a chair for the keyboard, and I want to make a shelf for stupid junk that I need by the bed or want by the bed, like nail clippers or my bottle of water or box of tissues or whatever I might acquire. But there's a little hook in the wall there, and I want to put like a shelf high enough that I'm not going to karate chop it in my sleep, and to hold some of the stuff. That's probably going to be a project. I'm working on doing a lore hunting video, but I'm waiting for the tour guide, the environmental guy, from the local water source to tell me when they're going to drain it. But apparently he's not very proficient at responding to inquiries, so I'm kind of waiting for that. I was going to take a walk down around a couple days ago, but it looked like it was going to pour down rain, and it was like 40 degrees, so I didn't want to get soaking wet in 40-degree weather. It's just not... like, why do something if you're going to be miserable, correct? So, and I was thinking that I could make the chair out of one of the old garbage cans I'm using for a table, and then I can melt down a bunch of old plastic soft floors and make like a cushion for the top out of the plastisol, which I think would actually be really cool, and I think it would be like really comfortable. I'm gonna need a lot of soft floors, but luckily people are wasteful and will drop them and throw them all over the place down at the water source. So if I can find enough of them plus what I have, I don't really use soft plastics too often. So I was thinking that would be a way to make like a seat cushion, cover the garbage can in like some sort of material that I have. I have an old camo shirt that I ripped that I could like, and I found this little tiny sewing machine in my closet. So I mean, I know how to sew. That's also been a while since I messed with that. But I mean, I have that at my disposal, so I will be able to do something with that. And I'm thinking the idea is going to be like some sort of round pillowcase for the trash can seat, and then like a skirt idea for to actually cover the garbage can part. And then maybe even put like little pockets on it, depending on how good I get at sewing and how quick I get good at sewing. Because like I said, I used to sew, wasn't my strongest point, but I knew how to. And if I can pick it back up, then I could potentially do something kind of cool. So I made this cool little diagram. All right. So I sat here for about 20 minutes drawing little doodles, and I came up with this diagram. And I hope you guys like it, because I do. So, here. So, here's a picture of a car battery. Alright? And the car battery is going to give me, well, sulfuric acid and lead. And the lead, I don't really have a use for the sulfuric acid at the moment. To make other acids, probably, but maybe some other stuff, but at the moment, I don't really have a lot of use for the acid. But the lead, on the other hand, I figured I might make some fishing sinkers, which might be something that I'll do with that, besides maybe scrapping it, maybe. I don't really know. But car batteries are pretty easy to find most of the time, so I figured this would be a cool little project. So I'm going to do car battery to sulfuric acid to lead to possibly homemade lead sinkers. And then down here, you can see I got my D batteries. You see the little, I made a little bra swimsuit thing, double D's, get it? I'm gonna rip batteries apart to get the carbon electrodes, so I can do an electrolysis of water and sodium chloride, table salt, to produce a weak hydrochloric acid and a solution of sodium hydroxide. I'm not exactly sure how this works. I saw a couple of videos on it, and I'm kind of feeling like this is gonna be like one of those Rickroll things where they're like, oh, I want to see how many morons will try this. I kind of get the science behind it, but I don't really. At the same time, I kind of don't. So we're gonna test this theory because hydrochloric acid would be really nice, and then the only piece I'm missing from the puzzle for some of my other projects I want to do would be nitric acid, which is a little bit more difficult. So we'll test this theory and see how that works. Now, the hydrochloric acid I'll get from this is going to be very dilute, and you can only evaporate hydrochloric acid down to about 20%, because once you get down to 20%, they'll both evaporate together. So unless you do like a distillation, which I don't even know if that'll work, Now that wouldn't work because if they both evaporate at the same point, then you'd be distilling them both over. So I think it's 20% is as concentrated as you can get it. So that's something to keep in mind. Now here is a much larger diagram. This is a bigger project, and there's going to be more things to it, but this is kind of like the Clip Notes version. So we got a fire and a bucket of ash. So my neighbor has a wood furnace. I asked him to collect me a bunch of the wood ash because he's going to have to get rid of it anyway, so I don't see why that would be an issue, but that might be an issue. I don't really know. He seemed okay with it, but he hasn't gotten back to me in over a week, so I don't really know if he's going to do it or not. But if he doesn't, wood ash isn't exactly, like diamonds, so I'll find it one way or another. And wood ash is going to get us potassium carbonate and potassium hydroxide, which potassium carbonate can be converted to potassium hydroxide through a couple different processes, which would be something I'm going to look into eventually, but this is the main thing that I want. So potassium hydroxide is, in other words, like a different form of lye. Your typical lye that you buy in the store is sodium hydroxide, but most hydroxides do this effect where they can strip like organic material from like hides. So I'm hoping that it'll strip flesh from catfish. I gave it like a cat face. Get it? Catfish. But so I'm hoping that I can catch some catfish, rather big ones. I'm thinking probably 18 inches to the minimum, and then I can strip the meat, and I might dry the meat to some sort of beef jerky or something, fish jerky, I suppose, and take the skulls, clean them the best I can, and soak them in some potassium hydroxide to get the skull plate that is in a catfish's head. If you ever hit a catfish in the head with a hatchet, it is extremely, extremely hard. I mean, it's not unforeseen to get through it, but it is a pretty hard piece of bone. So I wanted to gather a bunch of these. I estimate that I'd need 3, but I wanted to get probably like 5 different sizes for another project. And of course, we're going to try a soap project because if we're going to have potassium hydroxide, we might as well try our hand at making soap like the other 16,000 million kajillion YouTubers. Another thing I plan to do is back from the catfish here, I'm going to go up and see if I can tan its hide to make like leather strips. Now, I'm not sure how strong fish leather is, but it should be a pretty cool process, and at the very least, I can make something decorative out of it, so that would be kind of cool. Now, tanning hide isn't incredibly difficult. It's not exactly easy either, but the potassium hydroxide will come into play here, and some other methods. I'll probably try yolk tanning, because I don't think catfish brains will work. I know you can use like squirrel brains to tan squirrel hides, but I think I'll probably use yolk tanning to see if I can get that to work. If you see the little head there, that's supposed to be the head of this catfish. It is not the neighbor's cat. I'm not going to skin and tan the neighbor's cat, so nobody, call any hotlines or anything. I don't think I'm exactly 100% right upstairs, but I'm not that far gone yet, so don't worry. And then the ultimate goal for this project, aside from the soap, is I was thinking about making like a vam brace for like a bowstring. So I'd overlap the skulls. The back one would be on top, and then have them scaled down, and then have them against each other, and then have holes to tie around my arm using the fish leather. So then if I ever decide to make a bow, I'd have a cool van brace to go with it. One thing I wanted to keep in mind, one thing I wanted to mention, see this number here, 315? Somebody has a picture of a catfish skull on the internet, and it's cleaned and put together. They want $315. Like, I've caught like a million catfish. Well, probably. I caught a lot of catfish, big and small, and $350 for one freaking skull. Like, why didn't I get into that hobby? But anyways, I guess it depends on who would actually buy it. But yeah, so that's kind of the plan for the upcoming things. Besides maybe some off stuff that I want to do, but I kind of got bored and it's kind of crappy weather outside, so I figured I would doodle up a little bit. It's getting dark now, but I mean, it's not really bad, but I'm supposed to go shopping tomorrow, so I don't really want to be expending a ridiculous amount of energy. So I figured I'd finish off this episode and do like a past, present, future thing. Hopefully, I can edit this together that it makes some coherent sense. But we'll see. It's like 6 different parts, so we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you next time.